Okay, so I just need to move this thing. Okay. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. So, thank you very much, Padma Nityananda Prabhu, for arranging this opportunity to address all of you. And it's a very special topic, the morning program prayers. We'll prepare seminar for a while. I think about a year ago, I started collecting different bits and pieces of information for this talk. And for the last about a month, I think we're working in a more, intense way, preparing for these 2 days. Unfortunately, it's only 1 day right now, but it's a nice topic, and we can carry on for as long as you'll be interested. So I just show you a few pictures from what happened yesterday. Yesterday, we had a big storm in Gaudiya, and actually the night before. It was a little bit of a glimpse of a description of the 25th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Lord Indra became very angry with Krishna. And so he sent big torrential rain and hailstorm in Govardhan. So you can see there's a huge trees are falling down. Actually, it's very interesting topic, because the trees in Govardhan and Vrindavan, they're very special creatures. Many times in our Bhakti scriptures, the trees are mentioned because trees are special, and Krishna has a special affinity for trees. We need to be as humble as a tree, and more tolerant than a tree, rather. Krishna, what we can offer to Krishna is the leaf, the flower, and of the 4 things that Krishna is asking us to offer, 2 of them are coming from the trees. And so here we see the tree which was fallen down in Vrindavan. So there's no doubt that this person from within this tree has gone back home, back to the spiritual world. So this is the posts also fallen down in broken wires. So like this. Anyway, so the morning program prayers. In the beginning, we'll do a little overview. Everyone can hear me well, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
So the overview.
Yes.
It was supposed to be to go over 2 days, but now it's only day 1. So let's see. So we'll start from the introduction. So we'll introduce the topic. Then we'll discuss the history of the prayers of the morning program. It's probably the most entertaining part of today's discussion, because in the course of preparation, we've interviewed quite a number of Srila Prabhupada's disciples and looked into different books about Srila Prabhupada's memories of Srila Prabhupada and his biography. And then Mindful Bhajan. Recently, I read a book, and it really, really impressed me. And the book is called Spiritualizing the Mind with Mindful Bhajan, or Conscious Bhajan. This book was written by Ukrainian devotee. He's a very, very, powerful Sanskrit scholar. So he wrote this whole book about how to spiritualize our mind by practicing conscious bhajan. And we'll explain about this. So there'll be 3 subtopics. Means 5 lessons of taste. So this place will be a little technical. We'll discuss different verses from the Bhakti scriptures. And we'll draw some 5 lessons of how to increase taste for our spiritual activities, and especially for the morning program of chanting the holy name. Then we discuss music and devotion, because these 2 things are very much related. Bhakti and music, they are very, very close to each other. And the last is a flow of pure thoughts. It's a very intriguing name. I took it from this book of Mindful Bhajan. It's an interesting way to describe of what actually happens when we chant the bhajans or devotional songs in this particular way. So this was the overview. Okay. So what are the goals for our discussion. So without setting the goal, without having a nice, strong sankalpa, no one is able to achieve anything in this world. So together we'll try to develop a technique or a way how to practice more effective and mindful bhajan. So bhajan means japa or prayer, service, association, everything that we do in bhakti. And it will allow us to associate with Srila Prabhupada and the pure flow, in the pure flow of thoughts of our previous acharyas through deliberate, attentive, and prayerful singing. Then we'll try to expand our understanding of the prayers, and we'll try to provide a more internal dimension to them. So we'll try to understand why these particular prayers given to us, because there's so many different prayers, there's so many different ashtakas and so many beautiful verses written by our acharyas. So why are these particular prayers were chosen by Srila Prabhupada and why they were given to us? And what is their mood? What is their significance and what is their meaning? And how are they particularly relevant to us? And the third point is just to help us to preserve the purity of the practice of the morning program, its purpose, and for the future generations of our spiritual family, Prabhupada's family of ISKCON. So these talks or seminars or discussions like this will help us, because we interviewed quite a number of Srila Prabhupada's disciples and referred to Srila Prabhupada's instructions and his books, lectures, and his correspondence. So it's a nice way to somehow preserve the whole culture of the morning program. So especially nowadays, if you think in probably 20, 30 years, how many of Prabhupada's disciples, or what to say disciples, how many people who actually seen Prabhupada face to face will be left on the planet. So right now we're in a very special position. We can still address them, we can still ask them about some details of Prabhupada's personal association, what he was like. So the first part is called the tenets, or the basic points. So we'll start with the Mangala Charanam, just to bring auspiciousness. So a little beginning. Actually, I was reading recently about Mangala Charanam. Mangala Charanam, another goal, another reason to chant Mangala Charanam is so that we have an opportunity, enough strength and determination to finish what we're starting. So because it's not just one day discussion, so we definitely need to bring some of this auspiciousness. So we chant the Mangala Charanam prayers. Magyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Metamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giri Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarna Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Prashtatyate Shataya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Namashashta Manamapi Sachasutram Sachiputram Atrasvarupam Rupam Tasyagraja Murupuri Madhurim Gostavati Radhakundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasam Praptoyasya Patita Kripaya Shri Guru Tam Natosmi. So it's very beautiful prayer. The Sanskrit looks long and scary, but it's actually a very, very simple prayer. It's a prayer written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. It's a prayer from Mukta Charit, and I believe it's also from Mangala Charanam to this book. In this prayer, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is praying and praising his spiritual master. He's saying that I am fully indebted to my Gurudev. And then he is listing all the different things. Why is he indebted? Why is he grateful to his spiritual master? So he says, Namashrashtam, because my Gurudev, he gave me the highest conception of the holy name. Manumapi gave us the Gayatri mantras, or the Diksha mantras. Sachiputram, the son of Mother Sachi, means the service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Atra Swarupam. He also gave us Swarup Damodar Goswami. Rupam Tasyagrajam, Srila Rupa Goswami and his elder brother Tasyagrajam, Srila Sanatana Goswami. Urupurim, the stronghold of Bhakti, Madhurim and Gostavatim, Madhura and Vrindavan, Radhakunda, Girivaram, Aho, also gave us Giri Govardhan, Radhika Madhava Ashram. Ashram means a hope or desire, a hope to one day attain the service of the divine couple. Praptoyasya Pratita Kripaya, Shri Guru Tammatosmi. And indeed, the mercy of my spiritual master is unlimited. Therefore, I'm offering my respectful obeisances to him. So this prayer is very much connected to our discussion, and especially when we'll discuss the Guru Ashtakam prayers, this connection will become more obvious. This prayer was written by Raghunath Goswami, whose Samadhi Mandir is right here in Govardhan, is right here on the banks of Radhakund. Actually, this is the place where he performed his bhajan for about 40 years, I believe. And in separation from Krishna, he was crying so hard that he became blind. And this particular prayer that we just read was also written here in Radhakund. I remember my first parikrama around Govardhan. It was a few years ago. And we were going, it was a night parikrama. So we started in Kusum Sarovar about 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30. And so we reached Radhakund by 3:30 a.m. And it was amazing just to be understanding, after reading Nectar of Instruction, you understand this is the center, the epicenter, the topmost spiritual place in the whole of the universe, the most important place, Sri Radhakund. And you sit there during Brahma Muhurta, so it's the most auspicious time. And so we're sitting on this, on the stairs, on the banks of Radhakund, and behind us was the Samadhi of Raghunath Goswami. And at 3:30, all the Babajis, all the residents of the mandir, they came out and they sat just right above us, behind us. And they started singing something. And especially when it's Bengali Babajis, when they start singing, you don't get it straight away because of the accent. But then after some time, I realized they singing nothing else but Guru Ashtakam. They started singing Samsara Davana, Lali Dalog. And at that time, I felt very, very special because you come from Malaysia Dash, come from the West. There is no way, unless for Prabhupada's mercy, no way we could have found out what Hare Krishna Mahamantra, what to speak of, Sri Radhakund and all these places. How would we gain access to go there? And then we're sitting there, and the local residents of Vrindavan, the local Brajavasis, they start singing the song, the prayer that you sing every day because of Prabhupada's mercy. So we felt very, very special that we can feel, because of Prabhupada, we can feel at home in such a sacred place. And actually, as we mentioned this prayer in the beginning, all these things that were listed, the holy name, the Manumapi, the prayers that we chant in the mind, means the Diksha mantras, Giri Govardhan and Radhakund and all these places. These things are actually our shelters. So all these things are our shelters that Srila Prabhupada also gave us. And so just like Raghunath Das Goswami is grateful to his spiritual master for all these things, we're also grateful to Srila Prabhupada for giving us all these shelters. And it's important to remember that when Srila Prabhupada was on his so-called deathbed, and in preparation for this talk, I decided to look, because I've never read it before. It's a wonderful book by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. It's about the last days of Srila Prabhupada's earthly Leela. And so he was writing a very, very precise and very detailed diary of what was happening in the last few weeks before Prabhupada left. And it's very, very interesting how Prabhupada's desire was to go down Govardhan. And he split his disciples into camps. And literally, Srila Lokanath Maharaj, he already prepared the bullock cart. The bullock cart was ready. So they could take Prabhupada around Govardhan. And the other half of disciples, with Bhavananda Maharaj and Krishna Maharaj, they were completely against Prabhupada going anywhere. And it's a very, very heated discussion on how all this is happening. And Prabhupada, at one point, he looked at his godbrother, Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj. Oh, the light came on. Nice, good sign. So he was looking at his godbrother, Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj, and he looked at him and said, "Do you see how much they love me? Do you see how much they're attached to me?" So it's not a coincidence that Srila Prabhupada identified or showed us what we need to take shelter of at this most difficult and most testing time, the end of life, facing death. And so how we can take shelter? One of the words for shelter in Sanskrit is alaya. Alaya means something which is not destroyed. So therefore, laya, you can say this is the beginning of presentation, so I was spending more time, it was very detailed. So this is called the Sanskrit TV. So laya in Sanskrit, like we say, yuga pralaya, when the universe got destroyed, getting destroyed. So it's laya means destruction. And when we add a, means alaya, means something which is not destroyed. And so, for example, the word Himalaya, Hima in Sanskrit means winter or snow. So Himalaya, see the mountain peak. Himalaya means something, a place where winter or snow is never being destroyed, means they're constantly staying there. So therefore, alaya means an abode or shelter. So this prayers of the morning program is that beautiful shelter that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Or rather, because the shelter is a holistic thing. It's all the things that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Because shelter is like a roof, and roof must have different pillars to be supported by. So the prayers of the morning program, they're like the pillars which support the shelter that Srila Prabhupada gave us. I'm subscribed to the Monday meditations by His Holiness Danadhar Maharaj. And then one of the latest ones, he shared his realizations of being on lockdown in his little ashram. And it was a very interesting article where he's speaking about a simple sadhu. He was asked a question. He was asked a question by a friend, and he asked him, "So what is the secret of spiritual life?" And the sadhu answered. It was a very nice answer. He said, "I do the same thing every day." And this is the answer. I just do the same thing every day. So this answer is very, very simple, very humble, and it's brilliant and even witty. Because Bhakti is a science. So therefore, what we practice every day, putting endeavor, even materially speaking, when you do something every day, a person becomes good at it. And it's just the nature of the mind, because the mind is originally, manas is in the mode of goodness. So therefore the mind becomes very, very happy when the activities are regulated. And even the 6 Goswamis, in the 6th verse of Sat Goswami Astaka, it's explained that they were engaged in chanting the holy names of the Lord and bowing down in a scheduled measurement. So it was every day. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was explaining that his sadhana was like lines in stone. So nothing can move it. When I first was conceiving how to start this presentation, I came across with one nice story which nicely describes what kind of gift Srila Prabhupada gave us. So it's a story about the king and a beggar. There was one beggar and he was very, very poor. Very poor man, and he was poor all his life. So poor that he's never actually have seen gold in his life. And he was becoming very old and he was thinking, I know I will be poor. This is my destiny. I'm just a poor man. I'm kind of got used to it. But everyone is talking about this gold. This gold. Like these people kill each other. There are wars because of this gold. So my only desire, I don't even want gold myself. I just want to see it. And he knew that he was residing in a place, in a kingdom, where the king was very righteous. And it's a duty of a Kshatriya, when anyone comes, to fulfill all their desires. So the beggar came to the king and he said, "My dear king, you are a righteous king and only have one desire. I'm not asking you to give it to me, but please, can I just see what gold is? What does it look like? I'm an old man." According to Manu Samhita, when a Shudra becomes old, I think after 90 years old, he is worshipable, he becomes worshipable. So he was a very, very old man, and the king decided to fulfill his desire. So he said, "No problem, please come." And so they came in this big hall, big, beautiful chandeliers, and he said, "Come up." So they went on the first floor. It's a beautiful, beautiful stairs with handles and everything is nicely carved. And he came to this big door, the big lock. He opened the lock, and there was a treasure room. And he said, "Look, you see this yellow bricks? My friend, this is gold." And the beggar saw this gold, and it was so beautiful and glittering. And he said, "Wow, it looks so beautiful." But as he looked back, he realized that even the steps and even the handles and the pieces, parts of the chandelier were also made of gold. So in the same way, the morning program prayers, when we first come to Krishna consciousness, we understand this is very important. We see the depth in them. But as more we practice Krishna consciousness, as more we deepen our realization by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of Guru, the more we understand what an amazing gift Srila Prabhupada gave us. And if someone gives you gold, probably you will be very, very grateful. But if someone gives you something which is only increasing in value all the time, how grateful we should be. So therefore, back to our Sanskrit tea. So the two words, Sat means eternal, and Dhana means wealth. And so when they come together, they become sadhana. Our spiritual practice is translated as eternal wealth. So people work very hard for gold and other different material assets, but they're not eternal. But things that we get by practicing sadhana, these gifts will never be taken away from us. So this is the end of the introduction, and the next section we'll talk about the history. So just to make it a little bit interactive, if anyone wants to add anything, or I'm just trying to make a little break for me so I can drink a little water. Okay, let's go. So why this section of history? Why is it so important to understand? Because we understand that the prayers and the whole morning program was given to us by Srila Prabhupada, but understanding where these prayers are coming from and how Srila Prabhupada for the first time encountered them and why he chose these particular prayers, it kind of gives a little bit glimpse of Srila Prabhupada's care, of Srila Prabhupada's heart, because in this section we'll discuss the morning program in Gaudiya Matha, the morning program from, the practice, the sadhana from Srila Prabhupada's childhood, and in different places where Srila Prabhupada throughout his life, where he was residing, what influenced him, and what came together is what we know in ISKCON as the morning program. So I'm just trying to get used to this new format. It's like, I know you're there, but I cannot hear you, cannot see expressions on your face. So it's a little new thing. It's like speaking in front of my TV only. Let's see, okay, so Prabhupada's childhood. We'll be reading quite a few paragraphs because they're coming from different books and from different recollections of Srila Prabhupada, disciples and his followers, his associates from the early days. So this is actually from Room Conversation. Is it too noisy? Because now it's the 7:30 Aarti time and I'm staying by Govinda Kund, so there are many temples here. 7:30 is always the gong show. So, from Srila Prabhupada's childhood. Yes, so this is coming from room conversation in Mayapur in 1977. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, up to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, he was speaking about his father. He was engaged only with his puja. He was going late, at 12 o'clock to bed. My father would rise a little late, around 7 or 8 o'clock. Then after taking bath, he would go purchasing. Then from 10 o'clock to 1 in the afternoon, he was engaged in puja. Then he would take his lunch and go to business. And in the business shop, he would take a little rest for 1 hour. He would come home at night, and then again, he would do puja. And then Srila Prabhupada says, actually, his real business was puja. For livelihood, he did some business, but puja was his main business. We would be sleeping, and father would be doing Aarti. Ding, ding, ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. So from a very, very early on, Srila Prabhupada was exposed to the practice of devotion, of deity worship. Actually, Srila Prabhupada refers to his father. He tells that his father was a pure devotee. Next is a quote from a nice purport from 12th chapter of the first canto. So there's a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord. When I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna in a playful manner. I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of neighboring temple of Radha Govinda. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges. And I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again, I revived my old habits, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave me first impressions, which was developed later into regulative devotional service by his divine grace. So it's a jewel-like purport where Prabhupada outlines his relationship with the deities throughout his whole life. And it's very nice in a personal way, the way he's sharing this. So in fact, Radha Govinda deities, this is the picture of this Radha Govinda from, this is not his, the deities that his father gave to him. These are the deities from across the street, from their residence. It was on Harrison Road. Now this road is called MG Road. You know, in India, they like the abbreviations a lot. So MG Road, it stands for Mahatma Gandhi Road. So this temple is there still, Radha Govinda temple. Actually, this temple was established in 1822. So in 2 years, there will be 200 years since installation anniversary. And so the family of Muliks, they were maintaining the worship of the deity of Radha and Krishna. And every morning before breakfast, the Mulik family, all of them, they would come to visit the temple to see the deity, to have the darshan. So Srila Prabhupada also used to visit this temple daily and pray. Actually, in one of the conversations, Prabhupada shared that he said that Radha Govinda Joy, as their inspiration for my devotional life. There was one memory by Bhavananda Prabhu. when Srila Prabhupada got sick in 1967, and when he came back to India, actually he said that Radha Govinda is calling me back, and he was referring to this Radha Govinda from Kolkata. And so in this temple, it's not just Radha Govinda, also there are beautiful deities of Gaur Gadadhar and Sri Ravati and Valera. So there was another indication of Srila Prabhupada's early affection to Radha Govinda is from Lilamrita. I read this bit is, college life was demanding. No longer was Abai free to spend hours before the deities of Radha Govinda early in the morning. That had been boyhood luxury. He would daily pass hours in the next temple before the sodden forms of Radha Govinda, watching the pujaris as they worship the deities with incense, flowers, lamp, musical kirtan, and opulent flower. The raised Bhavananda Prabhu, he also shared that if you still go, this temple is still there, of course, and you can still go there. And if you come to this temple around 7 o'clock in the morning, it's the time when they dress the deities, when they dress Radha Govinda. And there are no curtains, so they put a little barrier. And he said it's very intimate when you can come and you sit in front of the deities and just a little barrier between you. You can see everything, the way they decorate them and worship them. You can chant your japa and think about how Prabhupada used to come here when he was just a little boy. So it's a nice little small detail. So there's one indication in one letter by Srila Prabhupada. He says, as a child, when I was going to the neighboring Malik temple, I was thinking then, when I will have such a nice deity to worship. And now Krishna is so kind that I'm establishing so many nice temples all over the world. Now, I want that there should be established 108 temples before my death. So you think how to do it? So it's a letter to Mother Teresa in 1975. So this is little indications of Prabhupada, morning program, Prabhupada, deity worship in his childhood. So next, I would like to discuss a little bit about Gaudiya Matha regulations. Everyone is still okay? Just maybe you can say Haribol.
Yes.
So Gaudiya Matha, so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his daily activities, although he was fully engaged in preaching work, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would never neglect basic devotional practices. He would rise very early in the morning, typically by 2 o'clock, latest 3:30. And after bathing and so forth, he would chant his japa, and at 4:30 he would attend Mangalarity. So this is an indication that there was Mangalarity in Gaudiya Matha also. If not otherwise engaged, then after morning temple services, he usually dictated essays and book manuscripts to Vasudeva Prabhu. Srila Saraswati Thakur liked to take an afternoon stroll. While walking, he would chant his japa or recite different verses from the scripture, or discuss with a few of his disciples points of Krishna consciousness, and particularly how to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And in the evening, he would also attend the evening Aarti, and sometimes he would deliver a lecture. Because actually, in Gaudiya Matha, as we're going to read in the next paragraph, the evening programs, they were actually more attended by the local congregation, by the local grihastas than the morning programs. And then he would go to sleep, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would go to sleep around 11 o'clock. And then he would wake up at 2 and latest 3:30. So the daily schedule in Gaudiya Matha. So each morning, I will read this because this is very nice. I've taken this straight from the book of His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So each morning at 4 o'clock, the large bell hanging in each mat was rung to wake still sleeping Madhavasis. Sometimes Srila Saraswati Thakur himself, he would go to the place where everyone would be sleeping and wake whoever was still sleeping there personally. Generally in the summer, morning functions were held a little earlier, and evening functions would be held a little bit later. This is due to Brahma Muhurta is 1.5 hours before the sunrise, and so the sun would be rising in different times in winter and summer. A typical day in each Gaudiya Matha began shortly after rising. Devotees would congregationally sing Gurvashtaka by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Vaishnava Nandana by Devakinandan Das, which offers respect to all Vaishnavas, and then Sri Guru Parampara. This is the song that was composed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself. So the song was describing the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya succession. Actually, this is one of the regulations of the Shastra, that each morning a disciple, a Shishya, has to name all the prominent acharyas and pray to them every morning in their sampradaya, in their lineage. Then they would read Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat for a few minutes, and this was followed by Mangalarati at 4:30. So all this was done before Mangalarati. Attendance was compulsory. This is very interesting, actually. Any devotee who had not bathed by 4:30 due to sickness or late rising would stand at the back, hugging the wall, far away from those who actually have bathed and done fresh clothes. So even if they were sick, even if they didn't have time to take a bath, they would still come for Mangalarati, but they would be standing far away. So attendance was compulsory. So during Mangalarati, the first prayer sung was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Aarti Kirtan, and then followed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jividoya Kari. Then Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda was chanted once or twice, and for the remaining few minutes Kirtan of Mahamantra. So after that, Aarti and Kirtan, Jaya Dvani prayers. Jaya Dvani prayers is the way we call them Prema Dvani prayers. It was recited. Next was Parikrama around the deities, performed 4 times, accompanied with Kirtan, and we'll continue briefly after the circumambulation, and often was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's composition beginning Bhajare, Bhajare, Amara Mana, Atimana, Atimanda, and other songs. Next was Tulsi Aarti, but interesting that here Tulsi Aarti, the prayers, they used to sing prayers by Sri Chandrasekhar Kavi, and so these are a little different prayers that we sing. So Namo Namaha Tulasi Maharani. In the songbook, the 2 prayers, the Tulsi Maharani, they're listed side by side. Then after that, there will be light breakfast of Mahaprasad, was served approximately between 7 o'clock or 8. Although many devotees skip this, by 7:30, most went out for bhiksha, for begging, returning around noon, while others remained behind to perform other services. And then the evening program is also described. So after dark, Madhavasis, they were required to remain within the compound. As per Vedic injunction, the brahmacharis residing at Gurukul, they should not leave. They would attend evening Aarti, during which they would sing Aarti Kirtans of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, beginning from Jaya Jaya Gaurachanda Aarti Kashola, so we also sing that in evening, and other songs. Then there will be Hari Katha, given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, or one of his leading disciples. And any evening program would attract many of local Grihastha disciples and local visitors. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was always instructing all of his devotees, brahmacharis, grihasthas, sannyasis, everyone, that they should always attend all the functions in the temple. And the reason was because these functions, these programs, they incorporate all essential bhakti angas, the limbs of devotional service. So the next we'll discuss a little bit about Srila Prabhupada's household life and what was his program when he was a grihastha. So of all different sections in the history, this one is, we have a very little information about that. So from Prabhupada Lilamrita, there's one indication that Prabhupada was worshipping, well, we know from the purport that we just read by Srila Prabhupada, that he, throughout his Grihastha life, he was worshipping the deities that were given to him by his father, the small Radha Krishna deities. And so Srila Prabhupada would finish all of his morning program by 8 o'clock, because at 8 o'clock he was leaving for work. There's a nice story by Bhavananda Prabhu that he shared with us. And these little deities that Gaur Mohande gave to Srila Prabhupada when he was a child. At one point, when Srila Prabhupada, it was already after Srila Prabhupada took sannyas, obviously, his sister came to him. It was during ISKCON times. His sister, Bishama, she came to Srila Prabhupada, and she was complaining. She was complaining that her husband was a bit of a rogue, you know. He was fishing, eating, drinking. Actually, I'm sorry, I don't think it was during the ISKCON times, it was before that. So he was a fish-eating, drinking rogue. So she was complaining to Srila Prabhupada, you know, whether she needs to divorce or what to do. And Srila Prabhupada said, no. Remember the deities that we used to worship with you when we were little children? She said, yeah, of course I remember. So Prabhupada gave these deities to Vishama, and he said, just worship them and pray to them, and just express your heart to them. So she followed Prabhupada's advice, and after some time seeing the devotion that Vishama had for these deities, her husband had a change of heart. And after seeing her devotion, he actually started worshipping her. And then Vishama, after some time in Mayapur, she came in ISKCON and she gave these deities to devotees in Mayapur. But unfortunately, in one of the attacks of the dacoits, the deities were stolen and they were never recovered. It would be so nice to have a darshan of these deities. Probably they're still somewhere. And this is a very interesting section here, probably one of my most favorite ones. The Srila Prabhupada in Radha Damodar temple. We know that Srila Prabhupada resided in Radha Damodar temple for a while. He resided in Vrindavan altogether for 12 years. And in Radha Damodar temple, he resided from 1961 until he left for the West. And this stay in Radha Damodar has influenced Srila Prabhupada quite a lot. So there's one nice recollection. It's a story by Hridayananda Das Babaji Maharaj. It's from a book by Mula Prakriti Mataji. It's a very, very nice book. It's called Our Srila Prabhupada is a Friend of All. And so when Mula Prakriti Mataji, she came to interview with Babaji Maharaj. When she asked a question about Srila Prabhupada, this Babaji, he started to cry. And that's what he said. He said, and this Babaji has been serving in the temple as a pujari for 77 years in Vrindavan. So that's what he's saying. He said, never have I seen anyone do sadhana like he did. I have lived all my life in Vraj, and I've never seen anyone like him. Prabhupada did many adverse things. He worked very hard there at Radha Damodar temple. At that time, it was austere, undeveloped, and very muddy and dirty, with no facilities. It's a very, very special place, this Radha Damodar temple. Actually, Srila Prabhupada in many places, he referred to this place as his bhajan kutir. And actually in 1977, he instructed his disciples to start worship in his rooms. And he said, although officially the worship of in a bhajan kutir of the spiritual master starts after spiritual master leaves this world, but just to make sure this is happening. And I want my sannyasis to live there and to maintain the worship. So we know that Mahanidhi Maharaji used to live there for quite a number of years, maintaining the worship. So, so Srila Prabhupada's program in Radha Damodar, Srila Prabhupada would wake up at 1 a.m. So when everyone was still sleeping, everything was very quiet, and Srila Prabhupada, he would begin writing. He'd be writing, translating Srimad Bhagavatam. We know in Radha Damodar is the place where Srila Prabhupada wrote a translation. He translated the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 volumes. He also wrote Easy Journey to Other Planets. It was like a little warm-up before the Bhagavatam. And so at 4 o'clock, the temple pujari who would be his place, he would be sleeping right by the entrance, by the door to the deities. He would be sleeping in a little shelter. So the pujari would wake up at 4 o'clock. He would take a big stick and just scare away all the bats, from the rafters, from the roof. And then by 5 o'clock, after waking the deities, the pujari would open the doors of the altar and they would start the Molarity. And then they would offer different items to the deities. And this is a nice place describing Srila Prabhupada's experience in the morning. Any sound from the courtyard carried immediately to Srila Prabhupada's quarters. And a clanging bell and gong would suddenly reverberate against the walls in his small room. From his sitting place, he could see only Vrindavan Chandra on the left of the altar. Sometimes he would pause his work and he walked into the courtyard to see the deities and the Aarti. So the altar is, as you know, in Radha Damodar, there's more than one deities, more than one of Radha and Krishna. So Radha Damodar, they are originally worshipped by Srila Jiva Goswami, and there are other Vaishnavacharyas deities there also. And then after 10 minutes, the pujari, having offered the flame and the conch shell filled with water, he would turn and sprinkle offered water into the heads of the devotees. And the ceremony would end. And so after working a few hours in Srimad Bhagavatam, then Srila Prabhupada would sit in his room and chant his japa. And the next slide is the morning program in the International Society Krishna Consciousness. So we know that after Radha Damodar Temple, Srila Prabhupada went to the West, and the rest is history. So the first types of morning program, they started from around May 1966. This is when the regular program started on the 26th 2nd Avenue in New York. So one recollection from Jadharani Mataji, she remembers that in early days in 1966, Prabhupada would be doing Aarti, I guess, to the pictures at that time. And no one knew what he was doing. And they would think, Swamiji is doing bells. They're calling now, Swamiji is doing bells. And it was so enchanting to see how Srila Prabhupada, with his eyes filled with tears, he would do something which to the Western person doesn't really make much sense. But seeing devotion of Srila Prabhupada, and at the same time seeing the character of Srila Prabhupada, who is serving them so nicely, and who is so personal to them, who's cooking and cleaning after them, and ready to help with everything he could. And you could feel that Srila Prabhupada is really their most, their first well-wisher. And just, this is a combination like this, an amazing character, and seeing manifestations of someone's devotion. This what actually gives us faith. So up until 1969 or 70, there was not really much of a structure to the morning program. So only after 1970, this is the time when the things started becoming more structured or organized, in an institutional way. So, important point, we will not discuss this in detail, but it was an important point that was brought to our attention by a few of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, is that in early days, and just throughout, Srila Prabhupada was also stressing the evening program. Not just the morning program, but also the evening program. So traditionally in ISKCON, the evening program would be the Sandhya Aarti, followed by Krishna book and hot milk. Sometimes hot milk will be served while reading Krishna book. And And sometimes, instead of Krishna book, they would read also Nectar of Devotion. Srila Prabhupada also said that we need to read Nectar of Devotion every day. So we won't get into that discussion because it's a completely different topic, but just to bring to everyone's attention and consideration, something to consider. So what we'll do next, we'll go through all the different aspects of the morning program one by one, and we'll discuss when Srila Prabhupada first encountered this prayer, this aspect, and when it was first appeared in ISKCON, and little details, other details. So we'll start with, obviously, Sri Guru Vashtakam. So we'll discuss Sri Guru Vashtakam history, the mood, and greater detail on a day when we'll have dedicated discussion to Guru Vashtakam prayers. But we'll still, just to make the presentation balanced, we'll still say a few things. So this is the prayer written by our great Acharya, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And this Acharya, we have many great Acharyas, but Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has a very special significance, particularly in the life of Srila Prabhupada. So, as we read before, so Srila Prabhupada's first encounter with Sri Guru Vashtakam was in Gaudiya Matha. And just in general, this prayer is very widespread. Most Gaudiya Vaishnavas from all the different parts, they accept this prayer as their standard morning prayer. Because the 9th verse of Guru Vashtakam also explains, that this song has to be sung loudly during the Brahma Muhurta. One who recites these prayers loudly during the Brahma Muhurta will obtain personal service to the Lord of Vrindavan, Vrindavanath, at the end of their life. So it's a beautiful assurance given to us by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So when did this start becoming a regular program, regular prayer in ISKCON? So actually from very early on, Srila Prabhupada introduced that. Actually, if you remember the very first recording that was done in New York, the Happening album, so-called Happening album, first LP, it was 2 sides. The side A was Srila Prabhupada and the disciples chanting Hare Krishna, this famous recording, and then Srila Prabhupada's explanation about the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And on the side B, there was this Guru Vashtakam prayer. So Srila Prabhupada very early introduced this prayer. So from Achyutananda Prabhu, he remembers that actually Srila Prabhupada, there would be himself, Achyutananda Prabhu, Brahmananda Prabhu, and Jadurani Mataji. They would sing outside of Srila Prabhupada's room, and they would hear Srila Prabhupada sing it alone, Guru Vashtakam, and also he would sing Sadgaswami Ashtakam. So Prabhupada had a very strong affinity, very strong attachment for these prayers. And we'll discuss in greater detail. There's some amazing stories about Prabhupada, becoming very emotional in the very significant times in his life. He would be taking shelter in these prayers. So also Chaitanya Prabhu, he's telling that when he joined Srila Prabhupada to go to India in 1967, he recorded for Dravida Prabhu this morning melody. Because Srila Prabhupada was very, very particular that in the morning we need to use morning melody and evening melody. We'll discuss about this also later further in this seminar. And also nice recollection from Mother Yamuna. I just read this, it's very nice. Early days, 67, 68 in San Francisco. In the mornings, our morning program began at 7 a.m. And Swamiji first chanted the Guru Vashtakam prayer with many instruments in the temple. And at that time, in the temple at that time, and in the consideration of our neighbors, Swamiji trained us to try to have Kirtan a little softly in the mornings. It was one of the few instructions he gave us on performing Kirtan in those very early days. And when Swamiji trained the Guru Vashtakam, and when Swamiji chanted the Guru Vashtakam prayers, we would all play our instruments very softly. Swamiji told us it was a prayer to offer respects to the spiritual master, and he chanted it very, very slowly. And Mataji Karisashi says, of course, we had no words, no songbooks, and we didn't have these prayers written down anywhere, so we couldn't really sing them, but we listened with rapt attention. And most often, Srila Prabhupada would play kartals himself in a very specific way, playing them. That was very, very beautiful. Mataji remembers. And traditionally after, we always sing Narasimha Pranams. So Narasimha Pranams, they consist of two parts. So the first part is starting with Namaste Narasimhaya. This part is coming from Narasimha Purana. And the second part, Tava Karakamala Vare Nakam Madhutta Shringam. This is from the famous Dasa Avatar Stotra by Srila Jayadeva Goswami. We don't really have particular information about where Srila Prabhupada for the first time came across with these prayers. It may well be, that Srila Prabhupada put these prayers together from Narasimha Purana and Dasavatar Stotra. So if anyone has any information about that, you can please contact me. I'll be very grateful to put it here, to add it to our seminar. So when and how they first appeared in ISKCON, in our research we came across with 3 stories, how they for the first time were chanted or heard by devotees. So the first story is from Achyutananda Prabhu. He said that, it's a famous story that most of us know, that Narasimha prayers, they started when Srila Prabhupada asked us to sing them when he was getting a little bit ill after his heart attack in 1967. So all devotees started chanting them. But it doesn't indicate that actually they became a practice to chant Narasimha prayers after each Aarti. Then another story from His Grace Mahatma Prabhu. His story there, he says that there was a bomb threat in 1970-71 in California, I think in LA. And after that, Srila Prabhupada gave the prayers to the devotees. And then the devotees actually started singing them. Prabhupada commented, he said that these prayers will help to protect our movement and our spiritual master. And another interesting story is from Turiya Prabhu. So the story is saying is that these prayers were given in 1970 during the Ratha Yatra in San Francisco. And so the story was that a group known as Black Panthers, they gave a warning to ISKCON devotees that they will attack Srila Prabhupada and the devotees during the procession. And so at that time, Srila Prabhupada taught these prayers to Vishnujan Maharaj. And then Vishnujan Maharaj started singing. He taught all the devotees how to sing them. And all the devotees started singing them then and there. So there are 3 different stories. And it's okay that they're different. We'll accept them all. It's nice. And the next section is Tulsi Kirtan. So this is the official name for this prayers that we chant. Tulsi, Shri Tulsi Kirtan. So this song is composed by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the same person who wrote many other books, and probably the most famous for us is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Srila Prabhupada first encounter, and this is very interesting, because as you remember in Gaudiya Matha, that's why we had to read this whole thing, about the morning program and evening program in Gaudiya Matha. So now we can understand that in Gaudiya Matha, actually, they sing different Tulsi prayers. And the prayers, this Tulsi Kirtan, Srila Prabhupada for the first time heard in 1961 in Radha Damodar temple. And so if you look at the old pictures of the temple and where Srila Prabhupada's room was, outside of his room, you see these little Tulsi stambas, the little pillars on which the Tulsi will be growing and Tulsi will be worshipped. And so devotees will be singing this Shri Tulsi Kirtan every morning. And it's just, we won't discuss this right now, but sometimes when devotees say that, Srila Prabhupada only gave us some devotees, say that Srila Prabhupada only gave us ABC of spiritual life, basic practice. So to make these people change their mind, you can just refer, or just read it yourself, the difference in the mood of the prayers of Sri Tulsi Kirtan that we sing every morning, and the song composed by Chandrasekhar Kavi, Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Maharani, Namo Namaha. So they're very, very different type of prayers to Srimati Tulsi Maharani. So you can do it by yourself. It's a very, very nice thing to do. And so when was this introduced in ISKCON? So Srila Bhavananda Prabhu, he remembers that Tulsi worship was introduced as early as in 1970-71, because he was a temple president in New York, and he remembered that at that time Tulsi worship was already introduced with all the prayers. And it became a standard when the first songbook came out. The songbook was compiled by Achyutananda Maharaj, so it was in 1972. So it became widespread in all of ISKCON in 1972. And after that is, of course, Govindam prayers. It's a nice picture of Srila Prabhupada was Radhalan Mishwara. This is where everything started. But actually, so Govindam prayers, as we call them in our family, the prayers coming from well-known Brahma Samhita. So this book was discovered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself while he was on his South Indian preaching tour. He went to this temple, Adikeshava D temple, and he discovered this manuscript of Brahma Samhita. So it's the chapter 5 and 62 verses remained. When I was looking for different material, there's a little controversy about that. Actually, some mundane and not so, so-called materialist, scientists, they say that actually Brahma Samhita is not mentioned anywhere in any other scriptures. So there is no reference to Brahma Samhita in any other Vedic literatures. And so some even claim that Sri Chaitanya wrote Brahma Samhita himself. So, but for us, it's not such a big controversy. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada told us that Brahma Samhita was spoken by Lord Brahma, and it was discovered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But even if Srila Prabhupada didn't tell us that, then if Brahma Samhita was written by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, then what's the problem with that? The Supreme Personality of Godhead wrote an amazing, beautiful poetry. So it's not really a controversy. So in case someone will come across with that, this is an interesting bit of information. So Srila Prabhupada first encountered Govindam prayers, or Brahma Samhita, obviously, in Gaudiya Matha. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has written extensive commentaries on this book, and it's traditional practice to offer these prayers while taking darshan of the deities. And so how it was introduced in ISKCON, so Mahatma Prabhu is sharing that actually these prayers, they were chanted very, very early, in early days. So even before the recording came out, so it means pre-May 1971. So and after the recording came out, Srila Prabhupada instructed devotees to chant it daily and to hear this recording during every darshan. Srila Prabhupada also trained devotees, these 3 grihastha couples, Mother Yamuna and Guru Das Prabhu, Mukunda Prabhu, that time Mukunda Maharaj and Janaki Mataji, and also Shyamasundar Prabhu and Molarity Mataji. So Srila Prabhupada, I think for about 2 weeks, he was personally instructing and teaching these 6 young devotees before they went to London, and they did what they did. And so particularly Srila Prabhupada taught them Brahma Samhita and Govindam prayers each day, and he was asking them to repeat word for word, and he would correct mispronunciations. There's one recollection by Bhagavat Prabhu that it was also a tradition while offering these prayers and taking the 7 a.m. Darshan, the Shringar Darshan of the deities, offering this prayer, singing Govindam prayers. It was also a tradition for all of devotees in ISKCON to offer little flowers, 1 little flower each. They would offer them to the deities. And after they would also 1 flower to Srila Prabhupada. And this happened in 1974 in April, when Srila Prabhupada came from his morning walk. He was in Juhu in Mumbai. So Srila Prabhupada came from his morning walk, and devotees traditionally offered him little flower, and someone spontaneously started singing Shri Guru Charana Padma prayers, and someone started offering full Aarti to Srila Prabhupada. And after doing this ecstatic activity, everyone became so ecstatic and so happy, and that when everyone went back to their temples, everyone wanted to carry on with this tradition. And so traditionally, it was institutionalized from April 1974. So in 4 years, in April, we can have the 50th Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. Interesting bit of information is that, before preparing for this talk, I've never even thought, Sri Guru Vandana is the only prayer that we recite the full translation afterwards. We don't recite the full translation of Guru Vashtaka, we don't recite the full translation of Brahma Samhita and of Tulsi Kirtan. But after Guru Puja, we all sit down and we recite the full translation. And it's an interesting occasion of what happened. There's one Srila Prabhupada, he was giving class. It was in 1975. He was giving class, and then he quoted from this bhajan, and he asked, so you sing this bhajan every day. Anyone knows what it means? And everyone become so confused, and they couldn't really answer anything. And so Srila Prabhupada said, everyone must know the translation of these prayers. And the temple president of the temple, he felt obliged and dutiful to know and to make devotees know the translation of these prayers. And so from that day on, we recite the translation of Sri Guru Vandana every morning. So Sri Guru Vandana is a song was written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, and it's coming from Prema Bhakti Chandrika. So Srila Narottam Das Thakur has 2 songbooks, Prema Bhakti Chandrika and Prarthana. So this particular prayer is coming from Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Srila Prabhupada first encountered this prayer most likely in Gaudiya Matha, and it was a standard prayer to offer Aarti and to sing this prayer during Vyasa Puja. So for till this day, devotees from Gaudiya Matha, they're a little confused when we sing these prayers every day to glorify Srila Prabhupada, because traditionally in Gaudiya Matha, this is done only once a year during Vyasa Puja. So this interesting recollection is from 1973 in London. One devotee recalls that once he offered obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Jai Srila Prabhupada. And while offering obeisances like this and saying Jai Srila Prabhupada, inside himself, he got a picture of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the personal realization of this devotee is that he says that, I believe that Srila Prabhupada allowed us to call him Srila Prabhupada, so this wouldn't interrupt his meditation on his Srila Prabhupada, on his spiritual master. And so therefore, when you see these pictures, when the Aarti is offered to Srila Prabhupada, and there is not even a drop of, self-worship or prestige, it's just absorbing the meditation on his spiritual master. And very often Srila Prabhupada would play kartals himself, because he would be singing these prayers to his spiritual master. And therefore in ISKCON London, you will also see Srila Prabhupada every day when we offer these prayers and we offer the worship to Srila Prabhupada. It's someone's duty to put the not so little big kartals in Srila Prabhupada's hands. So Srila Prabhupada can also offer these prayers to his Gurudev. Also once in Mayapur, Sudama Maharaj, at that time he was leading Guru Puja very enthusiastically. And in the end, he started singing, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Immediately, Prabhupada stopped him. He stopped the Kirtan and said, do not chant Jaya Guru Deva. This is Mayavad. What Guru Dev? Who is Guru Dev? Do not do that. I mean, of course, and who else is the Guru Dev? They only had one Guru Dev, Srila Prabhupada. So there was no need for addressing any other Guru Dev. Another very interesting bit of information is about Srila Prabhupada Pranati. So Srila Prabhupada Pranati is Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, these prayers. It was very, very nice discovery for myself. Actually, these two verses, you see these two lines, Srila Prabhupada Pranati, these were composed by different personalities and different time. So Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. This prayer was composed, originally was composed for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and it was composed by Srila Prabhupada's god brother, Vasudev Prabhu. Vasudev Prabhu is a very scholarly Vaishnava, very close disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Vasudev Prabhu, he was instrumental in introducing the first observance of Vyasa Puja of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1924. And he was also himself Vasudev Prabhu. And I like the word he used, not wrote, but he revealed the pranam mantras, honoring his Gurudev, pranam mantras for Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. You know, Nama, what is it? Nama Gaura Kishoraya, Sakshat, Varagya Murti, and so on. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. And so when Srila Prabhupada came, because it's a tradition, he obviously had to adjust this prayer himself, and he put Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. There's one interesting, very, very nice recollection of Satsvarup Maharaj from his book, Living with the Scriptures. He's saying, offering obeisances to Srila Prabhupada by singing his mantra in Kirtan was most assuring experience. If the Panchtattva mantra, the prayers to Lord Chaitanya and his associates, is more lenient than the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and is therefore always chanted in the beginning of a Kirtan, then the Prabhupada Pranati can be considered even more further extension of Krishna's mercy. We especially felt it when we went out to chant in public. And now, the second part, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashchachandashatarine. And we consider this one of the amazing manifestations of Srila Prabhupada unlimited humility. So Srila Prabhupada he wrote this prayer himself. He wrote this pranava mantra to himself, just so his young neophyte disciples can develop attachment and he can practice bhakti in a proper way. Because without offering proper respect to the spiritual master, you know this famous verse, Yasya Devi Parabhakti Vyata Devi Tata Guru, that all the imports, all the meaning of the Vedas will be revealed within the heart of a person who is equally worshipping his spiritual master with the same bhakti that he has for the Supreme Lord. And Achyutananda Prabhu, he remembers that it was in Delhi when Srila Prabhupada in 1967, he composed this pranama mantra himself. He saw him writing it. And Satsvarup Maharaj also in the same book, you can read this in his book. It's a very, very nice passage. He says, I was in Boston when we received our copy in the mail. Bharadraja Das Prabhu, a musical talented devotee, quickly made a nice tune for the mantra, which is still sung by devotees today. A devotee in California wrote to Srila Prabhupada, thanking him for the second mantra and commented how we were such dependent neophytes that Srila Prabhupada had to himself supply us with a prayer to our spiritual master. Although the Prabhupada Pranati mantras were introduced in a humble, informal way by Srila Prabhupada, they are highly significant for his followers. They are a disciple's meditation, as they are as the eternal servant of Srila Prabhupada. Our discredits may be many, And our spiritual significance may be nil, but if we can factually state that we are related to the great Vaishnava, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, surely Krishna will recognize us as one of the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya, and we shall be known by this mantra. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Shmati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prasthita Deshatarine. So this is followed by Prema Dvani prayers. So Dvani, in Sanskrit means sound, but also means a bell. So the sound of a bell, in many traditions, most of traditions, probably except for Islam, bells are used for worshiping the Lord. So it's very, very significant because also bell has the most overtones. It's a very rich sound. So it's like an echo. So Srila Prabhupada's first encounter obviously was in Gaudiya Matha. It's a traditional prayer and usually known as in Gaudiya Matha as Jayadvani. And it was, as we read it previously. And Chitananda Prabhu, he also remembers that from the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada would chant Premadvani prayers after every Kirtan. So it was also, many of us probably trying to preach these days and trying to introduce Krishna consciousness to new people. So how about to try to introduce Premadvani prayers to a completely new, fresh audience? This is the power of Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam class. So Srimad Bhagavatam class was also scheduled daily in Gaudiya Matha. And it was a common practice for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to give Srimad Bhagavatam class, or in his absence, to be given by his leading disciples. So therefore, it's indicating that our Srila Prabhupada took it, the practice of reading Bhagavatam every single day, Nitya Bhagavatam Seva from Gaudiya Matha, from his spiritual master. Also, many times Srila Prabhupada stressed that the whole purpose of having temples is so that people can come and hear about Krishna. He said, actually many times he would say that, look at the churches and other places of worship, they are completely empty because no one is speaking about God there. As soon as you start speaking about God, Krishna, people start to come. And this is the main benefit of the temple. And interesting fact that Srila Prabhupada, during the ISKCON times, when he would get even sick himself, he would still come for Bhagavatam class. He wouldn't give the Bhagavatam class himself. He would ask some of his disciples to speak, but he would sit there himself just to set the example that this is something very important, that we all need to come and hear Srimad Bhagavatam class. In one class, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he shared that actually of all the limbs, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very important. Probably the most important. Because a devotee can stop chanting, a devotee can stop following all other things. But hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every day, Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing else but Nama Mahatmya. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam means association with devotees. So everything will start again from Srimad Bhagavatam. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is an essential practice. And then japa time, we didn't put the slide for that because there's not much information about that. But japa time, one thing that we know, that is not a very common thing for Gaudiya Maths to have japa time. Few devotees who resided there, they know that there's no japa time in the morning program in Gaudiya Matha. So all the residents, they would chant their rounds either before Mangalarti or during the day. So that means those who are not engaged in preaching work, they would chant during the day, and generally they would chant about 1 lakh. But those are preachers, probably they would chant either in the morning or some other spare time. Also, Srila Prabhupada, in few letters, he mentioned that if you finish your rounds by 10 a.m., you will never be affected by Maya. Other place he would say that don't even start your service until your rounds are finished. So sadhana comes before service. Otherwise, if our sadhana is like a day ago, then we start committing offenses in our service. So it's 2021, so I guess we're We have about 40 minutes. So I'm quite happy that we went for the whole history. So everyone's still there. Everyone's still awake. Let's see.
Haribol.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Really enjoying it.
Okay. Thank you. So shall we carry on a little bit, or anyone has any other ideas? The next section we wanted to discuss the whole method of our presentation for the prayers. So we'll speak about mindful bhajan, and in this section we'll try to give some practical lessons that we can extract from our Bhakti scriptures in regards to enhancing our experience of the morning program. Because just to make it clear, we don't want to claim that by learning word for word all the translations of the morning program prayers that will, our experience will change. Of course, it might change a little bit, but our view has to be more holistic. So it's not just learning the translation. There's many, many other points. And so there's a beautiful quote. It says, life is not measured by the number of breaths you take, but by the number of moments that take your breath away. So morning program, it's a very special time. It's a sacrament, it's a sacred act. And so probably many of us who had an opportunity to have some breathtaking moments during the morning program. So probably maybe for someone it was the Molarity, Darshan, the Molarity Kirtan, very soft and very meditative, where you can really connect. Or maybe someone managed to connect during the Tulsi Kirtan and really pray to Tulsi Maharani. Or maybe someone had a very prayerful and deep japa in association of devotees. Or someone had a breathtaking darshan at 7 a.m. seeing Krishna very beautifully and exquisitely decorated and looking very smiling, innocent and happy with his divine consort. Or maybe someone had a literally breathtaking Guru Puja Kirtan where on the top of their lungs they would be singing Haha Prabhu Korodoya Deho More Padachaya 5 or 6 times. So morning program is a very special time. So anyone remembers their first morning program? Would anyone like to share maybe a few things? No? I asked one devotee today. He's a very, very nice brahmachari from Russia. It's very funny. So when I asked him, do you remember your first morning program? He said, yes, it was horrible. I wanted to sleep so bad. But I remember my morning program. Actually, my first visit in the temple was for Mangalarti. When I first came, I was very shy to come upstairs. So I took the leaflet, and in the leaflet it said that the first prayer started at 4:30. So I decided not to sleep at night, and I took a bus, 2 for 2, from Dalston to Tottenham Court Road station, and I came, and someone opened the door. That was my first Mangalarti. I remember Suddeniy Prabhu was singing, and it was a very, very special experience, after. And I remember the morning class was given by a Grace Mother, Urmila Mati. And after that I had university, so I went back to university and seeing the whole difference. My clothing was still smelling nice incense, and people everywhere in the university that was smoking, and you can really feel such a huge difference in atmosphere and consciousness and vibration. And so after that I started coming for morning program quite often. And I remember when I was giving the piece of paper with Guruvashtakam prayers and just seeing all the people around, knowing the whole Guruvashtaka by heart and singing it so nicely, I was thinking, wow. I was thinking, who are these people? How is it possible to know the whole Guruvashtaka, and tongue-twisting words and so difficult, and they're singing so nicely, and you can see this is something very meaningful for them. So a good morning program is very essential. So essential not just for those who reside in temples, but also for those who work. And actually Mahatma Prabhu told me that especially for those who work, morning program is very important. Because for those who don't have an opportunity to render regular service throughout the day, so chanting their rounds, and then morning prayers is basically what the Suddeniy is. That's basically the whole Krishna consciousness is. And it's not that it's not enough, but we just need to put a lot of emphasis on that. So a good morning program is like a medicine, and it's a nice meditation, you know. A nice meditation because our condition right now, we're diseased. So if we don't take the medicine, we just don't get cured. And this disease of lower modes, so it keeps us in goodness. Throughout the day, we're less affected by modes of passion and ignorance. And Prabhupada's mission was to create brahmanas. So, and Brahminical class are those who keep themselves clean, who wake up early, who worship the deities, who chant, who study, worship Tulsi. So this is the traditional practice of a Brahminical class, a Brahminical lifestyle. So the more we are regulated in the morning, or the less we're regulated, the less Brahminical we are. So the less we're elevated to Sattva Guna. And so what are the problems? Usually the problems as this morning program becomes our routine. So we extracted two main problems. What happens? So the first problem is that, familiarity breeds contempt. So we come to the morning program every day, and it's just our routine, something that we will do every day. We come for the morning program, we come for Mangalarity, we start standing in the darkness. We just think, okay, who's playing Mridanga? This guy is playing kartals too loud, the floor is so cold, I should have put my socks. I shouldn't have taken this lasagna yesterday at night. Or I need to take a nap before japa time. And this can be our whole morning program. This can be our whole Urvashtakam and Mangalarity. So although we're present, but the mind is somewhere else. So this is problem number one. And the second problem is that although we might be present there ourselves physically, and the mind might also be there, it's interesting for me to be in Mangalarity, to be other prayers, morning program, but not necessarily that I can actually connect with what's happening around me. Not necessarily I understand what we're singing about. So why does this happen? So please brace yourself, because this will be a little bit technical. There'll be a few quotes from different places. And the purpose of this is that we're not claiming that just by merely learning the translations we can enhance our morning program. It's just to give reference to the points from our Siddhanta of how to enhance our program and how to enhance our taste. Personally, I found it very helpful just going through these things myself. So I hope you will find it interesting too. And just to make it more interesting for everyone, to make it more entertaining, we decided to extract 5 lessons from all of these poems, something practical. So for those who are taking some notes, it's something probably noteworthy. So why does this happen? Why do this? 2 problems happen. So actually, the battle is inevitable. The battle of the mind and the heart. I think it was the 13th chapter of Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's the wonderful pastimes of the Lord during the Rath Yatra. I think it's 13. And so the Lord is praying there. He said, for everyone, the heart and the mind are 2 different things. But for me, there is no difference. Muraman, Vrindavan. My mind and my heart is Vrindavan. But probably for most of us, this is not the reality of our mind and our heart. So this dichotomy is there. And it is a disease. Srimad Bhagavatam calls it Hrid Droga, disease of the heart. Hrid Droga. So these are very deep-rooted attachments or conditionings, and they're so deep, and we're so conditioned by them that they practically have life of their own, and so they do not obey our will. And so to actually start traversing the path of devotional service, to traverse the path of devotional service means to start taking the treatment seriously, to start taking the medicine for real. So why is it impossible to avoid the obstacles? There's a beautiful, very concise explanation. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave a definition to the mind. He says, mind is consciousness absorbing matter. So the highest manifestation of spiritual energy is Krishna's name, form, qualities, Krishna's pastimes, nama, rupa, guna, and lila. So these things is the highest manifestation of spiritual energy. And to concentrate the mind, which is nothing else but a materialistic consciousness, on something which is completely spiritual, so sooner or later, it will bring some resistance from the mind. So practically it means, we'll be falling asleep, we'll become very distracted, we'll start checking out different websites, we'll feel bored, we'll feel indifferent. Sometimes we can even feel morose. So in other words, we just don't have any taste. Any taste, or specifically, we don't have any sweet taste. But bitter taste probably is there. And this is the key verse, and it'll be sinful not to quote this verse in this part. One of the most famous verses by Srila Rupa Goswami from Sri Upadeshamrita. Srila Prabhupada's translation from Upadeshamrita is called Nectar of Instruction. So, Sya Krishna Nama Sankirtana Disitapyavida Pitopataptara Sanasya Narochikanu Kintvadarat Anudinam Kalu Saivajusta Surikramat Bhavati Tat Gada Mulahandri. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by, and this is it's highlighted, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting the sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. Tat gada mula handri. So disease is destroyed at the root by doing what? By carefully chanting the sweet names every day. So we suggest that these two will be our first two lessons. So means gradually, step by step, we gain back ability to taste the sweetness again by carefully chanting and by carefully chanting these sweet names and doing this every day. So we suggest that the first lesson would be Anudinam, the Sanskrit for every day. And word for word, Prabhupada gives two translations, every day or 24 hours a day. And both of them, they have very deep meanings. And there's a nice quote from Srila Prabhupada. It's from a letter to Gopijana Vallabha Prabhu, who was a temple president in Brooklyn. And this is an initiation letter. So Srila Prabhupada instructing his young initiates, instructing to always be careful and attend the morning and evening programs, and particularly Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita classes. And he says, don't be a greater Paramahamsa than your Guru Maharaj. I'm following, so you should also follow. Don't be a greater Paramahamsa. This is a nice thing to remember and to instruct our own minds sometimes. Don't try to be a greater Paramahamsa than Srila Prabhupada. So there were quite a few stories about Prabhupada not showing very, not showing any leniency towards devotees missing Mangalarti. So it was in the summer of 1970, there was an incident where some people from Gaudiya Matha, they preached something to some of the young ISKCON devotees. In a sense, minimizing Srila Prabhupada's position. And Srila Prabhupada felt that, and exactly after this incident, Srila Prabhupada felt that the mood of devotees in the movement started to change. And immediately, it was a common program for devotees in early days in the 70s. They would go on chanting, especially in LA and places where there are many public places and places to go to chant. So devotees it would be common practice for devotees to go on Harinam until 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. And they will come back to the temple, and of course, there will be no question of attending Mangalarti. Actually, in those days, attending Mangalarti was something that pujaris do. It was not for common devotees. It's something for the pujaris to do. Mangalarti is a pujari business. Prabhupada, at that time in 1970, after this incident, Prabhupada introduced that a standard that all devotees have to attend Mangalarti. And they have to stop going chanting for so long. He said there is no need to do that. So you can come back in the evening, take rest early, so everyone will be present for Mangalarti. And even when devotees would still, due to different reasons or preaching programs, they will be coming back late, even 1, 2 a.m., Srila Prabhupada would be stressing that they would still come and attend Mangalarti. And he would say, you come attend Mangalarti and then you can take rest during the day. But no, for Mangalarti, everyone has to be there. Just like in Gaudiya Matha, we read previously. And I found this very interesting passage. There's a little piece of the lecture. I found it a few years ago, and it was giving me a lot of inspiration, so I wanted to share it with you. It's an audio file. Srila Prabhupada speaking himself.
Still in India, those were rich.
Everyone could hear this because I'm playing it from my computer.
Yes, I could hear it, Prabhu.
Yeah? Okay. So listen to this.
Still in India, those were rich men. They have got their family temple deities.
You cannot hear?
No.
This is strange. So
I can hear.
Some of you can hear and some not.
I can hear too. I can hear now.
Okay. Let's carry on.
One temple is there in Kanpur. The family members, they are very rich. So the rule is that if the family members do not come in the temple to offer obeisances to the deity, they will be fined. The mother, the head of the family, mother is still living. She has imposed this law that any of my children or grandchildren, he or she does not visit the temple, then according to this rule, this fine should be realized from them. So if somebody misses to go in the temple and the priest presents the bill, said you have been fined, kindly pay. So they pay, yes. So we should also impose that rule. Anyone who is not attending Molarity should be fined. And the fine should be that he must sell one Krishna book. Is that all right? Yes.
So for those who didn't hear, Srila Prabhupada said that devotees in ISKCON have to also be fined for not attending Mangalarti. And he said, and the fine shall be, one has to sell one Krishna book. And then Prabhupada says, is that all right? It's a very, very funny part. So the first lesson was that for practice, any practice actually, not just morning program or our sadhana, any practice, to be successful, we need to do it every single day. Lesson number 2 from the same part. Adarat, and this is a very big topic. Adarat means carefully or respectfully. So not just every day, but also with great care, respect, and do it deliberately. So Anudinam and Adarat, both of these words, in Sanskrit they are adverbs. So it means the part of speech which modify the verb, so they modify the action. So they answer the questions of how often, when or where. So Adarat particularly, will carefully, respectfully, deliberately. This is addressing of how the practice has to be performed. So we know in other place, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, in Guru Vandana prayers, we sing every morning, Vando Mui Savadana Mate, which means I worship or bow down to you with great care and attention. And so it's interesting to think, we can do little services with our hands with great care and attention. We can drive a car with attention and care. We can string the flowers in the garland with attention and care. But how do you bow down with great care and attention? So it's nice to understand the Sanskrit words, so it gives us more broader understanding. You're doing it deliberately or respectfully, carefully. You're not rushing, it's not mechanical. And so the opposite to Adarat is to do something mechanically or whimsically or negligently. And so the little piece quotation here is from Srimad Bhagavatam 176, from the Prabhupada. It's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada says, revival of the dormant affection of love of God does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. So not by mechanically chanting, mechanically hearing. So our endeavor has to be there, but it has to be not mechanical. And then like the famous, the two short pastime, Damodarashtakam, Damodar Lila. The two fingers represent our own endeavor and also the mercy of the Lord. So both have to be there. But this is a giving more elaborate explanation of what kind of endeavor has to be done. So not mechanical. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he translated the word Shraddha, which we know as faith. Sometimes he would translate the word faith, Shraddha, as a respect also. So in one sense, Shraddha and Adarat, I know it's a little technical, but Shraddha and Adarat, they are synonyms. And it's amazing quote. This is from Chandogya Upanishad. It's from chapter 7, which is a conversation between Sanat Kumar and Devarishi Narada. So Sanat Kumar is instructing his younger brother. So he's saying, I couldn't find the exact Sanskrit, so just a translation from a quotation from a lecture which I heard. Without Shraddha, or without respect or trust, a person cannot accomplish or understand anything in this world. Respect, trust, and acknowledgement of the importance of the subject matter help a person to concentrate one's consciousness on it, so that the miracle of understanding or mastering it can take place. So, example, recently, I think today in the morning, because I didn't have electricity yesterday. So today in the morning, I looked through Murli Manohar Prabhu's seminar about Nam Bhajan. And so this is a nice example of how when a person is giving, acknowledging acknowledging the importance of something, he is giving opportunity to actually concentrate and develop some taste in his practice. So the example of Murli Prabhu is that, Murli Prabhu's class on Nama Bhajan. So he felt it was important to speak about chanting of the holy name. It was important for him to study his Guru Maharaj's book and to present it to us. So his attitude was correct and he was proactive. And therefore he was given this ability to concentrate and to dive deep into this topic, and he was given opportunity to to give energy and give attention to this particular thing. So it's a little nice secret for us. Understanding is that why this particular thing, chanting Hare Krishna in the morning or attending Mangalarti or whatever it is, can be even material thing. Why is this thing I'm not happening in my life? Or why I'm not achieving any success in doing this? It's by, if we try consciously to give more importance, if we try to preach to ourselves and stress more importance of this thing, then naturally we'll find the time, resources, and energy to do that. And so we shouldn't be embarrassed because here, understanding or mastering it. So we don't usually use words master, something referring to spiritual discipline. So mastering, it just indicates that this mechanism works also for material projects, for material accomplishments. And so since Adarat and Shraddha are synonyms, we can say that another aspect of Adarat is to acknowledge importance of the object. So Shraddha comes from a mode of goodness. In the Bhagavad Gita is explained, actually, it's an interesting point. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 17th chapter, Krishna explains about all the different types of Shraddha and the different modes of nature. But I think it was the 7th or 9th chapter where Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he says that Shraddha comes from the mode of goodness. So how to understand that? So Shraddha comes from the different types of Shraddha in different modes, but Shraddha itself, the faith, comes from the mode of goodness. And the explanation is like this, is that whatever we believe in, whatever our motive for our beliefs, our respect is, whether it's fruitive, gain, or whether it's fear, or whether it's duty, so it means mode of passion, ignorance, or goodness, it doesn't really matter. Because Shraddha itself comes from the mode of goodness in the sense that mode of goodness is what gives a person ability to sacrifice. Mode of goodness is what gives a person ability to be selfless. Mode of goodness is something which gives a person an ability to see a goal and work towards that goal. And so if we understand this principle, the mode of goodness is the source of Shraddha, then we'll be able to understand inside ourselves how these mechanisms are working. And so, improve our attention during, again, I will repeat it, during whatever it is, not just the morning program, or just chanting. This is probably one of the most famous quotes of Srila Prabhupada. It's from Nectar of Instruction. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. Okay, I see we only have 11 minutes left, so so there are different types of attitudes. I wanted to study what actually, especially for those who are not, because English is not their first language, so I wanted to understand what actually attitude is. So this material I took from the book of Haridev Prabhu, where he is explaining what attitude actually is. So he's explaining that by definition, attitude is a compound notion. So there are two parts of it. There's our predisposition, means the way I think or I feel about something, and my response toward that. So, and there are two different types of predisposition, as you can see on the slide. There's superficial and it's genuine. So I mean, superficial, the way I think about something is based on my whims, it's based on pride. I'm high at this thing. Or genuine predisposition means when I'm, as Prabhupada says, serious, strict, serious, and sincere. So this is based on humility. And there are two types of response. So there's passive and there's active. So passive means it's based on laziness. We're not motivated. And active response is when we're inspired and we're enthusiastic. So I'm going to give an example of a morning program, for example. Let's speak about chanting Hare Krishna, it'll be easy. I can appreciate, so my predisposition would be, say, genuine. I can appreciate something. So for example, now in Vrindavan, if I see a sadhu who is chanting 2 lakhs every day, we have appreciation for this person. we respect this practice, we understand that the holy name is the highest practice. The holy name is no different from Krishna. But when it comes to our response, what is our response? Maybe we don't have the energy to make some positive changes within our life yet. So although the predisposition can be genuine, it's based on humility, based on knowledge, but our response to it is still passive. And actually, this is an interesting combination. Of course, there are many different gradations, so it's not just these four. So the innocent people which are mentioned in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the ones that we're supposed to preach to, are exactly this category. Means they have genuine predisposition, they're serious, they're humble, but they're not yet practicing, they're still passive. And so our preaching is there only just to turn them from being passive to being actively practicing spiritual discipline. Therefore, so lesson 3 would be, we make progress because humble, sincere, and serious attitude of someone who is actively practicing spiritual discipline is pleasing to Guru and Krishna. As we mentioned in one passage before, that we make progress not just by our endeavor, but by pleasing Guru and Krishna. And so what kind of endeavor will be pleasing to Guru and Krishna? Is when we are strict, serious, and sincere, and also we are proactive in our spiritual life. There's like another example of this is when Srila Prabhupada was giving an example of 4 different types of people. There's intelligent, and there is a fool, and there's lazy, and there's busy. So lazy intelligence is the highest, and the most dangerous one is a busy fool. He's a fool and he is also busy, so he's going to do something really bad. This is lesson number 3. Also in the same way, Jayadvaita Maharaj recalls in 1973 in New York, when Srila Prabhupada was walking during his morning walk, coming back to the temple, he saw a little boy trying to post a little letter, a normal letter for a letterbox, and he was too short, and so he couldn't reach the hole himself. Seeing this, his father immediately decided to help him, seeing his proactive and genuine disposition, attitude. The father lifted him up, and the child easily posted the letter for the letterbox. Srila Prabhupada, seeing this, his eyes became big, and all the devotees looked at Srila Prabhupada thinking, now Srila Prabhupada is going to say something interesting, and he did. Prabhupada said, look, this boy by his own strength, he cannot do. But the affectionate father, when he helps, then it is possible. And on the other hand, passive, lackadaisical, whimsical attitude will lead our devotional service into stupor and stagnation because it is not pleasing to Guru and is not pleasing to Krishna. So strict, serious, and sincere. This is a famous Srila Prabhupada Mahavakya. Okay. We'll read this little passage from Srila Prabhupada. It's from a class from Mayapur, Srimad Bhagavatam class from 1975. Bhajatam, bhaja sevayam. To serve Krishna, bhajatam, how? Priti purvakam. Not that, oh, Krishna has said, all right, let me do. No, with love and affection. Then you will get attachment. Unless you develop love for Krishna, you cannot be engaged 24 hours. That is not possible. Therefore, it is a priti purvakam, not officially, but with love. If you acquire this qualification, then you will talk with Krishna, who is within your heart. Then you will talk. He is ready to talk, but he does not talk with rascals and fools. One must acquire the qualification to talk with Krishna. Then you will be able to talk with deity. Within your heart, Krishna is situated there. Anywhere you go, Krishna is within you, and he will give you intelligence. Talking with Krishna means buddhi yogam dadamitam tesham sadata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Those who are engaged, those who are qualified like this, then I will give them intelligence. And probably of all 5 lessons, this lesson number 4 is my favorite. It's a very, very powerful lesson in the sense that only by service we can actually show our respect to Krishna. So our respect to Krishna is manifest in a way that after understanding Krishna's greatness, after understanding the greatness of our spiritual master, the deeper this understanding sinks in our heart, the deeper our surrender has to become. And the more we have to dedicate our full self to the service of Guru and Krishna. And the more we're actually dedicating ourselves to the service, this service gives us a frame of reference for further surrender. Or when we read Srimad Bhagavatam over here at class, when we read some prayer, this gives us a frame of reference so we can actually understand through our service. And when we're actually engaged in service, and we have little healthy anxiety about service, then all the other limbs of our devotional practice, they come alive. You know, when everything is nice and smooth and boring in our spiritual life, then we come before the deities and our mind and our heart is completely empty. And we feel ashamed. It's not that I'm desireless, but you just feel empty. You just don't even know how to address the Lord. You know, nothing is happening. It's just, one line, dead. But when from my experience, I can say when there's a marathon, and from, early in the morning, we just eat, sleep, and breathe, book distribution, and the whole morning program comes alive. Everything becomes the way it's supposed to be. You don't want the gates or the curtains to close when the Darshan is closed. Or when you sing the Guru Puja prayers, you really pray, Ha Prabhu Korador Deho Moripadacha. So everything just becomes very, very real. And then when the marathon finishes, everything comes back to its abnormal situation. So lesson number 4 is to somehow or other engage ourselves in service that will give us some little healthy pinch, little healthy anxiety. Prabhupada said that we need a headache. And so this will breathe in life into all our other practices. So by service. We have 2 minutes and the last lesson. So it would be nice, very logical position to finish. So before we were talking, the main verse of discussion from Nectar of Instruction is the verse where the 2 things are happening. Avidya, the jaundice, is being destroyed gradually, and the taste of feeling sweet things comes back again. So these 2 processes are more elaborately described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshastika prayers. So the second verse, I put the Sanskrit assuming that most of us were familiar with the translation. So, Namakari Bahulanita Sarva Saktis means, my dear Lord, you endowed all your internal potencies into the holy name. There is no particular rules when and how to remember your names. This is your mercy, my dear Lord. But Durdaiva Midrishami Hajani na Anuraga. But I have no taste for these names. I have no taste for this practice. So it means Nanuraga is practically similar synonym to avidya from the verse of Rupa Goswami from Nectar of Instruction. So this is destroying the ignorance. And verse number 4, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, playing the role of a devotee, is playing, I don't want wealth, I don't want following, I don't want beautiful opposite sex association, I don't want great learning. All I want, Mama Jamani Jamani Shri, birth after birth, Bhavatat Bhakti Aarti. I just want Bhava Bhakti. I want ecstatic devotional service to you. And this is an indication of taste. So remember these 2 processes. Verse number 2, destroying the ignorance. Verse number 4, acquiring the taste. And so what happens in between is that practice by what the knowledge, the ignorance is destroyed and the taste is acquired. Trinada Pisunichana, Taroravasa Ishnana, Amanina Amanadina, Kirtaniya Sadahini. So means, Adarat means being respectful, not just to the deity, not just to Guru, but also to every single living entity. So that means offering respect to the holy name, to the deity, to Krishna's expansions, but also to all living entities, because Krishna is within everyone's heart. So those who take shelter of Krishna, we need to develop friendship, relationship based on Vaishnava Sadachara. Those who are innocent, we need to preach to them, show compassion. Those who are offensive, we need to practice upeksha or ignore them. And that means basically that the steady growth of taste can only be in the heart of a person who is practicing to be a madhyama adhikari. Probably we cannot really experience this all ourselves, but on the opposite side, we can definitely feel when we had an argument with someone or we offended someone, immediately the taste for devotional practices diminishes and our heart becomes empty again. And so I think this is a logical place where we can stop, because we have quite a few points and topics to speak about, but we have many days in front of us. We can have many more sessions if devotees would like to. And so just to conclude this, our 5 lessons. Lesson number 1, practice daily, anudina, 24 hours a day. Adara means with attention and respect, acknowledge its importance. Lesson number 3 means our attitude has to be humble, sincere, serious, and it has to be active and has to be pleasing to Krishna. Number 4, we need to be engaged in service that requires our dedication, means taking responsibility for something, for example. Being absorbed in practical services give us a frame of reference of how to surrender further, and give us some depth in our devotional practices. And the last lesson is, in order to obtain taste and destroy ignorance, we must show respect to all living entities, expect no respect ourselves, be humble, and be tolerant. So in the next section, for the next day already, we'll talk about mindful bhajan, how music is very much related to bhakti, and we'll discuss the practice, which is called the flow of the pure thoughts of our Vaishnavacharyas, how we can bathe our mind in this river, on this flow of pure thoughts. So it's 9 o'clock here, 9:03. You probably can hear all the sounds of the birds and the monkeys and the dogs in Govindakund. So it's a very auspicious time for us to finish. So I would thank everyone for your kind attention. So thank again Padma Nityananda Prabhu for arranging this. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Seriously, because being on lockdown, and lockdown in India was very, very strict. We could only go out from 7 to 10 in the morning to do your shopping or go around Govardhan, whatever we need to do, and then just be back. And so it was a great opportunity for me to absorb myself in this study. And without proper Kirtanam, we cannot have proper Shravanam. So I thank you for this opportunity for me, to give me opportunity to speak, so we can make a little progress in our spiritual life. And please, our Guru and Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Hare
Anna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much.
Nam Sankirtan
Hare
Prabhu ki jai.
Krishna.
Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for inspiring us.
Thank you, Nam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That was real nectar. Gave us some taste.
Very enjoyable. Thank you.
So nice to see all the devotees here, because my window didn't show all of you. Wow, so nice. Ramananda Prabhu is there.
Yeah.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Wow.
I never been in the morning program yet. I want to attend the morning program now.
You haven't been to the morning program yet?
No.
Wow. But
Wow.
I mean, we all have, because Mayapur TV is there, so we all have.
Yeah, I'll do only online, but I want to actually, be at the temple.
Chandravali Mata ji ki jai.
Everyone, everyone.
Oh, you're here. It's
Brilliant.
Mataji.
Very
So nice. Oh, it's again the light. It's so nice. So nice to see that you're healthy. I got really, really scared when we heard the news. We were praying to
I know. Yes. I was all ready to go. Say bye.
No, Mataji, you could not go. No,
So, can't wait for you lot to come back. We can all go back to service. Okay, Hare
Jai.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Nama Sankirtana Prabhu, for the nice presentation. We'll have to arrange a date to do the next part of the session. I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you everyone for sharing the nice comments. Looks like everyone really appreciated the talk, even though Prabhupada's in and out of electricity. Managed to get through this seminar. So thank you very much. And so I'll end the meeting now, if anyone hasn't got anything else to say. So thank you, Nam Sankirtan Prabhu. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.